Hold on, everyone. Okay. All right. And hold on now. Okay. Now, Sister Jenny, we start with the 3 refuges and the 5 precepts. Sadhu.
นะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะUtang saranam gacchami, Dhamman saranam gacchami, Sangham saranam gacchami, Tutiyampi Bhutam saranam gacchami, Tutiyampi Dhamman saranam gacchami, Tutiyampi Sangham saranam gacchami, Tatiyampi Bhutam Saranam Gacchami. Tatiyampi Dhammang Saranam Gacchami. Tatiyampi Sangham Saranam Gacchami. Panatipata Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami. Adina dana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami kami sumichachara veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami musawada veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami surami raya macha pamadatthana Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay. Let us start with some meditation, silent meditation before we start the Dhamma Talk. So last week on Thursday, we discussed upon the Anattānupassanā, and especially on this Sankara dukkha, dukkha due to formations. Here in the Sankara dukkha, we look into the various insights, especially connected with dukkha. And the one, when we look at that Sankara dukkha, then we have different modes of oppression or different modes of Sankara dukkha arising. And they are coming as fear that a yogi becomes seeing this arising and passing away as something that's terrible, very unpleasant, very unstable. Then that type of fear arises due to there's nothing for you to hold on. This mind, this idea, these thoughts, this beauty, these feelings, or this body, nothing for you to hold on. And because of that, and that type of certain type of fear arises due to this arising and passing away. And this is one kind of Sankara dukkha. As it develops further, as you keep on noting, keep on going through, and then you notice this arising, passing away, this dissolution, this breaking up of things becomes very, very unpleasant, miserable, very having a very hard time trying to note it. Yogis cannot sit still. Yogis cannot go through going through a very hard time. Many things. And then we have the nibbida, disenchantment. Then even stronger suffering in terms of Sankara dukkha. Then we have this, what else we have? Then the desire for deliverance. Let me share my screen. So can, yes. So we have this enchantment, and then or disgust, and then we have desire for deliverance. Desire for deliverance means that once you see all these type of dukkha, you have that genuine wish to get out of this dukkha. Then the mind truly wants to go towards the realization of nibbana. Then knowledge of reflection, reobservation. Here, you're looking back into all kinds of anicca, dukkha, and anatta, all sometimes the past insights that you have seen before, and then you reobserve everything again. And even in this time, the actual pain, even viparinama dukkha, and also the Sankara dukkha becomes very strong. So all the three types of dukkha becomes very strong and really makes the yogi have a most probably the hardest time in terms of dukkha. So a lot of dukkha waiting for all of you. Okay. We talk about some Anattānupassanā and the imbalance of the five faculties. Okay, never mind. That one you want to go back to this one. Now, tonight I want to talk about this Anattānupassanā. But before we go through this Anattānupassanā, and tonight most I wanted to look into the nature of Atta and its danger. Not in the sense of Anattānupassanā. Maybe one or two more talks. We later we will look into it in a more moment-to-moment type of Anattānupassanā. So in the meantime, we're going to look into the bigger picture, because that bigger picture that bigger thing about this self and so on. Now, if you grasp it wrongly, if you don't understand it or understand them, this concept, this, then it can be a big hindrance to your practice and also to your progress, and even that you want to touch up, even you want to touch on the Dhamma too. That the mind can sway out from the Dhamma itself, not just meditation. So we're going to look into it. Yeah. So one who develops contemplation or notings on non-self abandons the perception of self. One line, but it's a very big way to understand this anatta and atta. Right? Now, before we look into this anatta, Anattānupassanā, we look into how the self arises. How this self arises and how they become strong and lodge into our minds and become a wrong view. So the perception of self, when the perception of self arises, then it becomes a cognition of self. Cognition here means thinking, pondering, conceptualizing, and then you will have a reflection and so on. And then you reflect on it again and again. And then you think about them again and again, about this nature of self. So after that, with that cognition of self, then for a long period of time, or after a short while for some people, then the wrong view of self arises. Then therefore it becomes the Sakkaya Ditthi or the Atta Ditthi. I'm sure that a lot of you have know what is Sakkaya Ditthi. Maybe we're going to describe about it also later part, because we just cannot let it go. I cannot let it go. I have to talk about it because it is something that sometimes even meditator, they toy upon that idea or they play upon that idea without realizing how dangerous it is. So perception, from perception, it springs into thinking, it springs into wrong view. So also the same, if we talk about the past talks that we have gone through, then it's also the same. Like for example, if you have the perception of permanence, then it arises the cognition of permanence or eternity. That means you think about eternity, you think about something permanent, something forever and ever. And then when it's long, it becomes a wrong view about eternity. It becomes sasatta ditthi. This one, as a sasatta ditthi, the wrong view of eternity, that word, this sasatta ditthi, you will find it in when you learn about the Four Noble Truths. When you learn about the Four Noble Truths, especially on the Second Noble Truth, the craving, when the craving arises, it becomes strong. One of it becomes sasatta ditthi. Then the other one is ucceda ditthi. Ucceda means annihilationist view, wrong view. So this one is having the wrong belief or the wrong idea that everything or certain things can be permanent, very permanent. So if you change the word permanence here, you change the word into pleasure, then perception of pleasure, cognition of pleasure, and the wrong view of pleasure. Here the wrong view of pleasure, and that one is connected to the Dukkhanupassana. Then it becomes what we call the materialistic view. You have all the pleasure here and now, and you don't bother about in the future whether there's karma or not. You die and that's it. That's how they believe. So all these things, it's dangerous. Although a lot of times we learn about these things, then we do not know. Sometimes there's as I said, there's a lot of things that we play upon it. Now, even sometimes we go through what people post in the Facebook. Sometimes the even Buddhists themselves, even the Buddhists themselves, they post certain posting about words, and then there is a forever, and then there's a soul, and then there's a God, and everything, without realizing that this is harmful. Now, what else I want to talk just now? Now, a lot of times, when we look at devotees, when they, you're very, what do we call that? The precepts. We hold on to the precepts of non-killing, non-stealing, and so on, and we are okay with it. We because these are taught to us. But we don't realize that there are certain things as horrible as killing or stealing, that it arises in the mind. And it can give rise also to a lot of unpleasant consequences, karmic consequences here and now, and also in the future. And it can bring one to the woeful states also, just by toying with this idea. You don't kill, you don't steal, but just by toying with that idea. So it can be very dangerous. If finally it becomes a wrong view, and it becomes a wrong belief, then it can become, and it can lead you to woeful states. Sometimes this wrong view may not lead you to woeful states, but it leads you to even to heaven also. Because certain wrong view, when you hold on to it, it asks you to do a lot of good deeds, do a lot of kindness, a lot of compassion work. And with that also, with that compassion work, then there's karmic effect, then you're reborn in the good planes of existence. So, what is wrong with it, after all, they say? After all, you're reborn in heaven, or reborn in the better planes of existence. But the fact that it springs from wrong view, it springs from ignorance. And then with that, it arises all kinds of action, whether it's good or bad. But all this good and bad action, behind it, it's wrong view or delusion. So, other words, even you reborn in a wholesome, in a happy state of existence, then when you meet with the right teachings, or you meet with the right Dhamma, or even you meet face to face with the Buddha, when the Buddha preached the Dhamma, you cannot able to absorb the Dhamma. As many as what we read from the suttas and Vinaya, and we read that there are many people during the Buddha's time able to accept the Dhamma, and they change their life. They become lay devotees, they become enlightened, become monks, and so on. But there are also big chunk of them that totally cannot able to accept what the Buddha says. Although many of them also met with the Buddha face to face. We can see that from even from the first sutta in Dikha Nikaya. They talk about all first or second, first and second, I think so. I forgot. Where we have all the others 6 or 5 teachers during the Buddha's time, and they have all the big following, a very big following. But sometimes in other places of the sutta, we see that the sutta talk to them, but they cannot able to accept. So you may reborn in the better planes of existence, but when it comes with the Dhamma, you cannot able to go through. Every time, somehow or another, the wrong view will block you. Yeah. Hey, wait. I want to leave the meeting. Press wrong button, sorry. Yeah, this one. Okay. Now, in the Anattānupassanā, okay, when we develop the practice, especially when it comes into the perception of non-self, then it builds up upon it again and again, and then it becomes the thinking of non-self, and then with the thinking of non-self, it becomes the right view of non-self. That you see in the view itself. Now, we too, perception of non-self also arises in our everyday life. Before we go into the deeper Anupassana, then also in the everyday life also, we also have non-self, but we don't realize that the nature, the characteristics of non-self is already being incorporated or being seeded into our mind. And a lot of times we may not connect that particular things as non-self. Now, one of the things is this. Now, one of the things is this, that we learn about karma and its effect. When we learn about karma and its effect again and again throughout when we learn the Dhamma, then it is a kind of non-self. And we are thinking about it. It's where this perception of non-self arises through hearing. Arises through hearing, and you through from your own wise attention of that hearing, and then after that the perception arises, then you think about the karma, and then you build up upon the view over time. You build up upon it over time. Now, teachings of karma, we talk about cause and effect. There's karma, and also there will be the resultant, whether it's a happy resultant or unhappy resultant, neutral resultant, and so on. So all these are teachings of a karma, and we look into its cause and effect in many ways. So it is non-self actually. But does not mean that in the world that we live in every day, everything that we learn about cause effect is non-self. Not all the time like that. This karma and its effect, it has to follow reality. That means it has to parallel with the reality. That means that concept of karma and its effect, the teachings of karma and effect, that means it's still a conceptual thing, it's still a cognition thing. That means it follows something which has happened ultimately, in reality. If it's not happened in reality, that also we cannot say that it is part of non-self. Because if you may say that, the Almighty, the Almighty or the God tells me to do something, tells me to be kind, or tells me to kill. So you thought that, hey, God says something or the Almighty says something, now I'm doing something. So there's cause and there's effect. That is not cause and effect. That is not karmic. This is not karma, or this is not understanding of cause and effect. Because firstly, the concept of that being or the Almighty does not exist. When it does not exist, it does not fall under the nature of cause and effect. So cause and effect, karma and its effect has to follow something which is ultimately there must be something there. It has to be real, it has to be parallel with reality. But the thing is that the next one is that I put here, but the right view of non-self, that when it arises through the hearing of the right Dhamma again and again, is going to be weak, because it can still be overcome by the wrong perception that arises from the latent defilements. A later part, we're going to talk about the latent defilements, and then we're going to come back to this one again. It's going to able to override all your right view if you are not careful. As long as you are a putujana, as long as you are not enlightened, even from the first stage, from a sotapanna onwards, if you have not enlightened yet, that means you can be still overcome by all kinds of wrong view, or even the cognition of self and so on. Whereas when it comes to the Anattānupassanā, this one you actually see the cause and effect. You actually see the true nature of how cause and effect take place directly, not teaching, not by somebody else, not from the books, not hearing from somebody, but actually you see it for yourself. And then the perception that arises is strong, but still it is not as strong compared to one who has eradicated the wrong view, which is enlightenment. So while you are still in the development stage of vipassana, as long as you are still not cross the enlightenment, therefore the self and the wrong view can still able to arise in you. So far okay? Okay. Let's look into it a little bit more. Sakkaya Ditthi. We look at Sakkaya Ditthi a little bit. The wrong view of personality, the wrong view of identity. The word Sakkaya is equals to 5 aggregates of clinging. Majjhima Nikaya 40. Okay, let's go there for a little bit. Majjhima Nikaya, where's my Majjhima Nikaya? Okay, here. Okay. Now, this is a Chula Vedala Sutta. Shorter series of questions and answers. Okay. Thus have I heard. On one occasion, the Blessed One was living at Rajagaha in a bamboo grove, the squirrel sanctuary. Then the lay follower Visakha went to the Bhikkhuni Dhammadina. After paying homage to her, he sat down at one side and asked her. And now this lay follower Visakha, this is the male Visakha. This is not the female, the benefactress of this one. Usually we associate with the word Visakha. This is the male without a long A at the back. And this is Dhammadina here. Now, two of them, before that, this Bhikkhuni Dhammadina was the wife of this male follower of Visakha. So after she become a nun, become a bhikkhuni, then this lay follower came to ask her some Dhamma questions, which is good. Maybe some of you become nun, then your husband may come and ask you a question. Who knows? Okay. All right, number 2. The word identity. The word identity here in Pali is Sakkaya. Lady, identity. Actually, the word is Aya. The Pali word is for lady is Aya. The Pali word is Aye. Sankharo. No, Sankharo. Sakayo, aye. Lady, identity, it said. What is called identity by Blessed One? What is called Sakaya by the Blessed One? Friend Visakha, these 5 aggregates affected by clinging are called identity by the Blessed One. That is, the material form aggregate affected by clinging, the feeling aggregate affected by clinging, the perception aggregate affected by clinging, the formations aggregate affected by clinging, and the consciousness aggregate affected by clinging. These 5 aggregates affected by clinging are called identity by the Blessed One. Okay, now the rest we skip. Okay, so 5 aggregates of clinging is this Sakaya. So the 5 aggregates of clinging, not just 5 aggregates, is the clinging part on the right view, on this wrong understanding of these 5 aggregates, then it becomes all kinds of wrong view. Now, how do you identify it? How does it this wrong view of personality or identity arises in this one? Now we can see that from various parts of suttas, it mentioned about the 20 types of Sakaya Ditti. Okay, let us go briefly. Let's go briefly. Too much also you all have a wrong idea, or too much also you also mong cha cha. Now, 1 to 5. Let's say 1 to 5. 1 to 5, let's say from beginning from materiality, and the 5 is consciousness. So the belief to be identical with materiality, feelings, perception, mental formation, or consciousness. For example, the body is the soul is the body. Okay? Or the feelings is the soul, or the soul is the feelings. So, or the consciousness or whatever, you can just, the body, you just change it to any of the 5 aggregates. 6 to 10, to be contained in them. The soul is inside the body. That means there is an entity within that body. Something, the soul which is inside the body, contained in them, inside the feelings, or inside them, the consciousness, and so on. Kind of reside there. Number 11 to 15, to be independent from them. That means the soul is apart from this body. It could be the mind, or it could be outside of this body and mind. It could be out, somewhere out there. Something big, something small, doesn't matter. 16 to 20, to be the owner of them. The soul is the owner or controller of the body. How the body acts, that means how you move your hands, or you kill, or you steal, or you speak, is all controlled by the soul. The soul owns you, owns the body. Or let's say your sankhara, it owns your thinking. The soul owns your thinking, or it controls your thinking. It controls your anger. It controls your greed. It controls everything. So it's a controller. So this is something like that. So hopefully, if we can able to associate that, then fine. We don't have to go through one by one. It's a lot. It's a lot. Now, here we can able to summarize a little bit. Here we can summarize a bit. Now, in terms of this Atta or self, then it can goes into like Parama Atta or Jiva Atta. Parama means highest or ultimate self. Jiva means life. Now, Let's start with Jiva first. Jiva Atta means that there's a soul or there's a something that it is inside one's body, or inside a tree, or inside a rock, or inside a place, or it's like in the stream, or in the sky, or in the something like that. Yeah? It's like those things have life, have a soul inside there. Okay, they have a soul inside them. They have a life on its own. They have life on its own. And they have, other words, they may have, some people, they may associate that they may have consciousness of their own. That consciousness, it's something there. To them, it's something like a soul there. Now this Jiva Atta also, it can also be controlling also. It can be controlling. That means, for example, if the soul is inside you, or that Atta is inside you, it controls your thinking, controls your anger, controls your this, and control that. You are the part of the whole ownership of it. No, the soul is the ownership of you, your mind or your body, everything. Now, Parama Atta. Now, the Parama Atta here, it's like the big Atta, the biggest Atta. That means this Parama Atta, it also can controls the Jiva Atta. Like, it's the Almighty. Now, Almighty can comes in different time. It can come in as humans use the different word as God, as Almighty, as Brahma, or even as universal consciousness, and so on. And all those things are like as if like they control everything, including the Jiva Atta. Whether how you do, what you do, how you kill, what you sleep, and so on. This Parama Atta will also controls the Jiva Atta, or maybe very, very complicated, all this thing. But anyway, we can just summarize it into just Parama and Jiva Atta. Easier for us to understand. Now, in summary, then wherever, when you go about in your everyday life, if you have any toying with the idea that it's going to be like that self is like everlasting, or that self is all-knowing, sabbanyo, or no suffering, or even the self is beautiful and pleasant or all-controlling. Now, if any part of this thing, or maybe even I have a longer list, perhaps there may be still longer list than this, but if you're toying with those ideas, with those thinking of when there is an everlasting happiness or a all-knowing being, you better drop all these thoughts away. Or any of the thoughts that you think that this is controlling your life and controlling your nature or being fated, you also please let it go. It's dangerous. And usually when we look at self or the soul or even the God and no, we want to associate with a number of wrong views connected into it. Everlasting or forever or eternity type of wrong view, it's connected with the wrong perception of nature or permanent. That one is overcome by impermanence, anicca. But the thing is that when we have all this wrong view, it's just not only just having one self only. But it is everything, all encompassing. Like even beautiful and pleasant, also the same thing. It belongs to the dukkha and sukha. But here, when we look at self, everything is all combined together. So, if you are playing with the idea of anything that is everlasting, just be careful. Yeah, just be careful. Sometimes you watch certain rom-com or romantic comedy. Then after that, the end is happily ever after. That one also you got to be careful. Nothing lasts forever. All knowing, and also the same thing. All knowing, he knows everything. So this one you all got to be careful. Don't play with this type of thoughts. You play with this type of thoughts, it can become very harmful to your life, to yourself, and also to your future, and also to your development, especially development of vipassana, because development of vipassana is going against all these things. So be careful. Oh, 9:30 only. I thought I'm going to finish already. See you. Nothing else to talk already. Anyway. All right. Now, we talk about defilements, because this one also, before we go any more further into looking into anatta and so on, this is something also we need to talk about it. Now, the first one is this gross defilements. They arises in speech, for example, killing, stealing, etc. And then they have karma vipaka. That means they have karma and its effect. So how do they overcome? You overcome them by morality, discipline, precepts, and so on. Morality here, even we talk about morality also last year. We talk about when the purification of morality. One of the 7 purifications, and we talk about that quite a lot. There are many aspects of morality, and all these aspects of morality become a very supportive for our mental development. Somewhere last year in Facebook, recorded in Facebook. This one is quite easy for y'all to understand. This is quite easy for y'all to understand, and this is how we have been. Most of us, if you want to do, meditation, a lot of us have, become very watchful of our morality, of our discipline, precepts, and so on. Which is good. Now, if those of you have not, better to look into it a little bit more. So sometimes this type of talks, you go to a Sunday Dhamma Talk, morning Dhamma Talk, and then they have all this type of understanding. Then you have these mental defilements. Mental defilement, it arises in the mind, but not in the speech and action. So, for example, you arises greed or hatred. Of course, when you say the gross defilements, it can come with hatred, but it's already expressed into your actions, into your speech, into your hands and bodily movements. So that is that. So this one, the mental defilements that arises from greed, this one, it comes up in when we don't see it in our action or speech. We can hate somebody, we can be jealous of somebody, we can be desire something, but it doesn't come up. So does it have karma vipaka? Yes, it still have karma vipaka, and this one doesn't mean that it's a mental defilement. Doesn't come up in your action. Yes, less defilement. No, it can be as strong as the first one also. So don't underestimate the number 2. So how do you overcome this? It overcomes by samadhi. Samadhi here means you develop certain mental qualities, wholesome qualities, then you overcome these mental defilements. For example, like jhana, or mindfulness, or right concentration, right effort, and so on. So these things falls under samadhi, and then it overcomes the mental defilements. This one, number 3, is what I want to talk more. Because this number 3 is connected to all our 18 principle insight. Latent defilements. Now, these latent defilements, they do not arise until the right causes or condition appear. So no karma vipaka at that moment of time. So not to worry. For example, as I said many times, right now, are you angry right now? Yeah, don't have anger. But anger will arise when coming near future, in the later time when there's condition. For example, what I mean by condition, maybe you see somebody you don't like, or you hear somebody you don't like. The condition arises, then all it from that later it turns into mental defilements, or even turn into gross defilements. It springs up from latent. So there's no karma vipaka if it's remain latent. But the problem is that these latent defilements, it can spring up again in the future. But when it springs up, But the latent defilements can remain latent for long period of time, or even for eons after eons. You can go from one Brahma to another Brahma to another Brahma for a long. The world come and go, the Buddha come and go. Then there's no defilements arises. Latent. It can remain latent for that long period of time. Unimaginably long period of time. But when a condition comes in, it can spring up again. So sometimes for example, like the Mahabrahma, Mahabrahma, in the text, it says that it can live for a long period of, for 1 eons or 2 eons. I forgot how many eons. But then it thinks that he is already no defilements already. So he's almighty, he's all-knowing already. So he thought that he's the almighty God already. But it's only remain, all his defilement is still remaining deep inside. So this one cannot be overcome. It only can be eradicated by the path consciousness. Can be eradicated by path consciousness. Okay? Now, these latent defilements, we're going to look into it a little bit more. Don't worry about the 1 to 7 here yet. After this, we'll go through it a little bit more. But this one, the latent defilements, we look into it a little bit more. Now, the latent defilements it can have latent in the object or latent in the stream of consciousness. Okay. What does it mean by latent in the object? What is meant by latent in the stream of consciousness? Latent in the object, that means the object doesn't hold your defilement, it's you or yourself is having that defilements. Okay, let's put it simple, between this latent in the object and latent in the stream of consciousness. Let's see. Okay. When you meet your husband or meet your wife, okay, was it a first love at first sight, or does it develop later? You ask yourself. Or anything that you desire one. Let's say maybe this phone enough. Yeah. Love at first sight, or love it later on, or a car maybe. Let's say you love at first sight. How come you look at it, or you look at him, or you look at her, immediately the desire arises? What happened? Whereas somebody else look at the person or look at the thing, desire does not arise. Why? So in that sense, we call it latent in the object. In the object, because when the object appears to you at that time, immediately the desire springs up. For you, let's say for you, immediately the desire springs up. For another person, the desire does not spring up because it's not a desirable thing to you. So why is it that it springs up? Why is it that it springs up? Because in the past, you have created certain perception. The past may be this life or also in the past life. Maybe that you have connected a lot of it, or with him or with her in the past. Right now, at this moment, the moment that you see it, it springs up. Immediately, the whole desire springs up. The whole craving springs up. The whole sensual desire springs up. Now, in that way, we call it the defilement. It's latent in the object. The object got no this one and all. Object got no defilement. It's just that because of the condition is there, we call it latent in the object. Last time when I read about this, I thought that the object itself holds the defilement for me. It's not. Yeah, it's not that. It means that we are the one in the sense that it holds the defilements when the object arises. When it things connected, then everything it springs up. Yeah. Okay. Just like the food itself, just you eat the food. The moment you eat it, you immediately like it. If for those who don't like the food, it reject the food. Yeah. So that is one. Number two, latent in the stream of consciousness. Latent in the stream of consciousness, in perhaps that is not immediately you see it, you like it, or you see him, you like her. Maybe after some time. After some time, whatever that your association or connection with it, or with him or with her. Now, for example, if that you don't like the person, or you have neutral feeling towards the person, but later on, after some time, after you met him or you met her, after some time, due to certain, you work together, or you understand each other, you talk to each other, or you've seen the kindness and so on, then slowly and slowly, the desire springs up. The desire springs up. So that one is kind of like not an immediate to you for the object, but it slowly it springs up through your stream of consciousness. In the future, you may see this phone, you don't like it. Perhaps you see this phone, you don't like it, but later on, you look at it again and again. After some time, you begin to like it. You begin to love it. Then it becomes from the stream of consciousness, it springs up. Then you like it. Then you want it. So this is to give you a rough understanding about what it means by latent in the object or latent in the stream of consciousness. It's just name only. It's just name only. It's just that how they arises. How they arises, It's just name only. There's the defilement is not inside the object. There's defilement is not inside the consciousness, It's just name only, because of the method how they arise. Okay? Yeah. Then we have this 7 types of anusaya. Okay, the one highlighted, the one is in bold, the one in bold. It's all the 1 in 7, it's all this thing. And this is given in the suttas. Now if you've asked me, Bhante, how come there's no more than that or less than that? I do not know. Don't ask me whether how come certain wrong, how come sloth and torpor not inside here? That I don't know. Don't ask me more than that. The sutta gave 7, so I just gave 7. But what is important is that not whether they got this or got that. After all, you're gonna, even you got more than like 100. If let's say you got 100, the 100 is going to spring up also. If you've got 5, the 5 also going to see. If you've got 7, the 7 is going to spring up when the condition is right. So it doesn't matter. What matters is that the eradication of it, the eradication of those things. So these latent defilements, you have lust for sensual pleasure, you have aversion, you have conceit, you have wrong view, you have doubt, you have lust for becoming and lust for ignorance. Let's take a look at a little bit more. The latent tendency of conceit right now. Now, the latent tendency of conceit, you may not have the conceit right now, let's say, but through time, over time, you read about, let's say, you are a better looking person, or you have a better intellect, you have a better intellect, you have an IQ, higher IQ, and people tell you again and again, and then after that, with that idea that you have, then it springs up from from what you hear, it becomes the cognition of wrong view already. The cognition of conceit, and you think that you are better than others already because of that high IQ that you have. So you think that you are more pandai than others, you are smarter than others, and then that's where the conceit springs up from the latent, this one. So these are some of the things. If we go into it, there's a lot of things that we can talk about. A lot of things we can talk about. Now, latent defilements. We go back here. When we are doing vipassana meditation, when we are actually doing vipassana meditation, if you have gross defilements or mental defilements arises, that means you are not able to do any form of meditation anymore. Simple as that. Very clear. Because a lot of defilements arises, it cannot coexist together with the wholesome mental states. It cannot coexist together with the wholesome mental states. So we have to remove these two, the gross defilement, the mental defilements. Otherwise, we must be able to be free from all defilements that when we actually doing meditation. Okay? Now, let us go back to all these things. Sorry, let me go back to all this thing in the past. All right. Now, here. Now, let me put it smaller a bit. Okay, yes. The word is that when you do something contemplation, for example, when we look at here a little bit, let's say, one who develops contemplation of or contemplation or noting of impermanence abandons the perception of permanence. One who develops the contemplation of unsatisfactoriness or dukkha abandons the perception of pleasure. Then non-self, the perception of self. So all in this, I summarize it into this one. It's easier for me actually also. So it abandons here. Now, while we are actually meditating, while we are meditating, if any of the perception of permanence arises, or perception of pleasure arises, or perception of self arises, or even the idea of origination or greed or delighting arises, then we cannot do meditation already. Then our vipassana cannot able to do. We cannot do any meditation. Okay, so why they call it abandon them? Abandon as if like they are there, then we drop it. Whereas in the vipassana, it is that your mind must be free from all these things first, then only you can actually do the vipassana. Okay, right? Now, we go back to the latent defilements again. Okay. Where is it? All right. We go back to these latent defilements. Now, while we are meditating, we are not abandoned anything yet. But what we are doing is that we develop the right perception. We develop the right perception. It's during in the meditation is that right perception is being developed moment after moment, whether it's anicca, whether it's dukkha, whether it's anatta, whether it's nibbida or adinava, again and again is being developed. At that moment of time, there's nothing abandoned. There's nothing abandoned. What happened is that the more and more that you meditate, your wisdom becomes stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. That means the wisdom becomes stronger because the right perception comes in, the right understanding, right view, everything starts coming in. I mean, here is actually the right perception because of moment to moment you meditate. So the right perception becomes stronger and stronger. Now, when it becomes stronger and stronger, it prevents the wrong perception from arising. So it becomes the gap for the wrong perception to arise become less and less and less. So the wrong perception may not able to spring up into gross defilements or even to a mental defilements. It's just being suppressed right now because of your wisdom is being accumulated stronger and stronger over a period of time. So before you are enlightened, you're on the way towards enlightenment. That means you're already developing a number of insights, let's say. So the number of insights right now, it does not abandon these things. What happened is that your insight, because of your insight, it prevents those things from arising, those defilements from arising. So because while you're noting all kinds of pain, all kinds of arising, passing away, all kinds of viparinama dukkha or sankhara dukkha and so on, then the latent defilements got no chance for it to come out. And moreover, when you stop your meditation, when you go back to your everyday life, because of that right perception you develop through vipassana, and then you see it for yourself, it also begin to form certain right views, certain right cognition, certain right understanding in your mind. And with that, it becomes stronger so that in everyday life also, those latent defilement does not spring up so much. It still got chance to spring up. But even it springs up again, your mindfulness will already know that, hey, this thing is something not right. This thing I'm thinking about something which is everlasting, something which is all-knowing, something is beautiful forever, something is lasting forever. Then when you have those idea, then your mindfulness and your wisdom already knows it. So when it knows it, it prevents it from it to go further so that it doesn't go into wrong view. Yes, a little bit of wrong perception and wrong thinking arises, but it does not spring into wrong view. And that you able to remove it very fast. Yeah? You can remove it very fast because of the development of the vipassana. So you see, so the development of what we are doing, again, let me repeat all over again. If not, some of us听不咯, yeah? You hear, you do not know what I'm talking about. It's more like I'm going to summarize from the beginning of the talk until here, because while we are doing vipassana, the moment that we are doing vipassana, we are developing wisdom moment after moment. We are developing the right perception moment after moment. Because of the right perception, because of that right perception and also the mindfulness and also the wisdom factor, it prevents the latent defilements from arising. It prevents them from arising, and it only sees the right thing only. It only sees the right thing. Now, as it grows stronger and stronger, then these latent defilements have lesser and lesser chance for it to arise. Okay, now, which is good, which is wonderful. That means your meditation is developing, but you haven't reached towards enlightenment yet. Let's say with this vipassana understanding, with the right perception that you have, you bring it back to your everyday life. So when you bring it back to your everyday life, because of your seeing in the vipassana that you have seen, so in your everyday life also, you develop certain degree of right thinking and also the right view due to the process that you have gone through, the vipassana. Okay, now with that right view, with that right thinking, what is going to be helpful is that that if any of these latent defilements arises, for example, connected with the wrong view connected with everlasting, all-knowing, almighty soul, if any of this thing arises, then it becomes your mindfulness and your wisdom able to detect it, and then that thing already, you can able to overcome it very quickly, because you know that it is going against the true nature of things as they really are. So because of that, then you have less chances of the unwholesome mental states, unwholesome karma also. So it doesn't form into a wrong view because of your right perception, your right thinking, and your right view that's developed through vipassana. So it is important. Yeah? So there's no abandoning at that moment of time when you're actually meditating. Yeah? While everything is going smoothly, yeah? While everything, your mindfulness is everything going smoothly. Of course, on the other hand, when you are meditating also, vipassana, once in a while that type of view may spring up. And then therefore, when those type of views spring, or those type of thinking springs up, that is also because of that time, if your mindfulness is strong and your wisdom is strong, you don't dwell into it, you don't go into its story, you just abandon it, just like you cut away the mental defilements, you just cut it away, cut it off, and then you continue with your meditation. Huh? So here our development of vipassana is to build up a lot of right perception so that the latent defilements doesn't have a chance for it to grow. So that's about it for tonight. Let me see, what else do I have? Nothing really. Okay. So we'll talk about this, and then on Thursday we're going to look into it a little bit more on this Anattānupassanā, but this time we're going to look into it more towards the moment to moment type of Anattānupassanā. So today's one is more of a more of overall thing, and then you must kind of like remove those things first before we go into the deeper, more minute type of anatta thing. Okay, so we stop here for tonight. All right. Okay, we share merits. On Thursday, did I say Thursday or I say Monday? On Thursday, so we come back on Thursday again. All right, we share merits. Idang me bawanang
Itang me bawanan,
nibbanasa
nippanasa,
pachayo
pachayo,
hotu.
hotu.
May my mental cultivation
May my mental cultivation
be a condition
be a condition
for the realization
for the realization
of Nibbana.
of Nibbana.
Imang no
Imano,
punya bagang
Nya Bagang,
sabba satanang
Sabha Satanan,
dema.
Demang.
We share these merits
We share these merits
with our departed ones,
with our departed ones,
with all beings
with all beings,
and all the devas.
and all the devas.
Sape satta
Sape Sata,
sukhi hontu
Sukhi Hontu,
anumodantu.
Anumodantu.
May all beings
May all beings
be happy.
be happy.
May they rejoice
May they rejoice
in these merits.
in these merits.
Sadhu, sadhu.
Sadhu, sadhu.